Interesting. This great news. The great news is, praise God, is Roe v. Wade was overturned, and that means instantly babies are being saved, guys. Babies are being saved, and I wanted to share this with you. I thought this was kind of interesting because we know that the devil likes to play with numbers. So it's interesting that abortion in gematria equals 122, and that they ended Roe v. Wade exactly 1 month and 22 days after they released that draft opinion that supposedly was accidentally released or what have you. So that was 1 month and 22 days, and then what's interesting about that 122 is abortion. Also, it was done on 6/24/2022, which is a form of 666. 6, and then you got 2 plus 4 is 6, and then 2 plus 2 plus 2 is also 6. So that's also very interesting as well. That it was a 666 day that it occurred, and I think the real kicker for this 122 is the fact that Roe v. Wade actually was originally passed on 122, January 22nd of 1973. So it's been 50 years, guys, and every 50 years, God has a jubilee, and he restores things during that year. So isn't it interesting that during this year, the 50th jubilee, God is actually restoring life. He's restoring life. He's bringing back life. Now, Satan may mean to use this as a foreshadowing of sorts, and what's interesting is if you look at, before I show you that, let's just look at a little bit of Bible on this. So Acts chapter 6, okay? Man, we're looking at some Bible today too, man. It's going to be really cool because we're going to tie in a lot of interesting connections as we're finding with the Bible as well. So Acts chapter 6 it talks about the story of Stephen. It says, "Now Stephen, a man full of God's grace and power, performed great wonders and signs among the people. Opposition arose, however, from members of the synagogue of the freed men, as it was called." Now, isn't it interesting they're called the freed men? Because wait till you learn about this group, okay? The freed men, okay? Sounds kind of like the free Masons. Interesting that's the name they go by. Remember, Satan always masquerades as an angel of light, so he pushes himself out there as someone who is, pro-freedom, when really he's anti-freedom. He's trying to take away your freedom, and that's what Satan's doing, right? He's trying to remove our freedom. So he's not about being a free man. He's not supporting your freedom, and that's what these guys are doing too. They're fakes. They're not freedmen. So it says Jews of Cyrene and Alexandria, as well as the provinces of Cilicia and Asia, who began to argue with Stephen. Now, if you look at this term freedmen, and this is going to tie in actually to the whole Roe v. Wade thing in a second. But I just wanted to show you this. I thought this was interesting. So freedmen is actually libertinos. Libertinos. Doesn't that sound kind of interesting? Doesn't that sound a lot like liberal, for example? Libertinos. The libertines were back in the early days. So again, freedmen from slavery. So they called themselves freedmen. But listen to the way they talk here. It's kind of similar to what we have now, where people are masquerading as angels of light. But they could not stand against the wisdom the Spirit gave him as he spoke. So then they secretly persuaded some men to say, "We have heard Stephen speak blasphemous words against Moses and against God." So they stirred up the people and the elders and the teachers of the law. They seized Stephen and brought him before the Sanhedrin. They produced false witnesses who testified, "This fellow never stopped speaking against this holy place and against the law. For we've heard him say that this Jesus of Nazareth will destroy this place and change the customs Moses handed down to us." All who were sitting in the Sanhedrin looked intently at Stephen, and they saw that his face was like that of an angel. Okay, so kind of interesting that these quote-unquote freedmen are actually trying to do evil against God's people. Sounds kind of familiar in a way. Now let's keep going. There's more to this as it relates to the babies being saved. Okay, so here, as we go down, let me see the exact verse it is here, if I have it here. Okay, Acts 6. Oh, yeah, it's in Acts 7. So in Acts 7:19, Peter's preaching here. Okay, so Peter's preaching to these freedmen and so forth, or to the Sanhedrin, sorry. But the freedmen were the false accusers, right, of Stephen. And he's talking about two different instances when they would sacrifice the children. And so what we've just witnessed is a time of sacrificing children for 50 years. They've been sacrificing the children. And here we're in the Jubilee year where God is redeeming that and ending that. And it was really encouraging to hear like places in Texas, they just immediately stopped committing abortions, immediately stopped committing murder. It was really awesome. Because they have a certain law that, if there's a federal law gets passed like that, they could get sued or they could get whatever their reasons were. But they immediately stopped. So there were people waiting in the lounge, so to speak. It's like, sorry, you can't have your abortion today because they just passed this and your baby will have to live. I mean, there were actually articles that said, people are going to suffer having to let their baby live, and they're going to have to suffer through parenthood. Guys, all these things are lies. When they say Planned Parenthood, it really means no parenthood, right? There's nothing planned. There's no parents involved, right? Because you're actually removing their parenthood by killing the child. You're taking away their ability to be a parent. So all these things are a contradiction. Like the freedmen are really about oppressing you and not letting you be free. So here he's talking about how the king of Egypt says he dealt treacherously with our people and oppressed our ancestors by forcing them to throw out their newborn babies so they would die, right? So this has been going on forever, guys. The whole idea of killing babies has been going on forever. It's nothing new. It's Satan's way of working. He hates God. He hates mankind because we're made in the image of God. So he's always trying to destroy mankind from infancy. And that's why now they're using the poison to do it. If they can't get you in the womb, we'll get you, as soon as you get out. That's why they're lowering it to as young as 6 months. They're killing the kids now. Here in verse 43, he says, "You have taken up the tabernacle of Molech and the star of your god Raphan, the idols you made to worship. Therefore I will send you into exile beyond Babylon." And I think he said it again here. Let me see. Verse 43. So, these were the guys who also sacrificed their children. I think he says it here again about sacrificing children. Let me see. Sacrifice. Is it later on? I think it's in Amos, actually. Okay, so let's take a look. So he's saying, you've taken up the tabernacle of Molech and the star of your god, Raphan, the idols you made to worship. Therefore, I will send you into exile beyond Babylon. Okay, so remember this Molech and the star of your god, Raphan. Okay, keep that in mind as we go over to Amos 5, but it still took me there. Okay, good. All right, so Amos chapter 5. Okay, so it's talking about the day of the Lord, interestingly enough. So it ties into the day of the Lord. He says, "Woe to you who long for the day of the Lord. Why do you long for the day of the Lord? This day will be darkness and not light," et cetera, et cetera. Let me go down here. And he says, "You lifted up your shrine to the shrine of your king, the pedestal of your idols, the star of your God, which you have made for yourselves." And again, it's talking about the star of Molech and the star of Raphan. Okay. And we know that they sacrificed their children to Molech. Let's see here. Yeah, do not give any of your children to be sacrificed to Molech. Okay. For you must not profane the name of your God. Israel, who sacrifices any of his children to Molech, is to be put to death. Cut him off. For by sacrificing the children to Molech, he's defiled my sanctuary. The man that sacrifices one of his children to Molech, if they fail to put him to death, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so that's the whole thing with Molech is sacrificing your kids. It's usually you see that big cow, that golden calf that throws the kid into the fire, right? That's Molech. Okay, so that's what they were doing. They don't sacrifice your son or daughter to Molech, et cetera, et cetera. So it's all about sacrificing children. Sacrifice children. Well, it's been going on forever. It's still going on. They put it in a nice sanitary, it's an abortion thing. It's murder. You're sacrificing your children, okay? Now, there are people who've done that. They've repented. They become Christians. They said, man, that was wrong. I never should have done that. And God forgives, okay? God can forgive you. But to go on saying that this is okay is obviously not okay. Most people don't want that. You notice, they're trying to get riots going right now. Not as big of a riot over killing babies, right? People aren't so like, yeah, come on. But look, you've taken up the tabernacle of Moloch, the star of your god, Raphan. Well, look at, it's kind of interesting. This star of Raphan, this is the star of Raphan. Okay, so the star of Raphan is the 5-sided star and the 6-pointed star. Well, isn't that interesting? You've got America and you've got Judah, or Judea, Israel, here. Isn't that intriguing? That's the star of Raphan, right? So those are the two stars that have now gone on to represent America and represent Israel, and those are actually the stars of Raphan. If you look at our dollar bill, and I think they have it here, I saw it when I was looking earlier, but on the back of the dollar bill, you'll see a star. All right, well, there's a couple stars. Here's one. You see that one with the pyramid. That's a 6-sided star there. But there also is one, another point of the bill where there's like a group of stars together. They're 5-pointed stars, but they're all grouped together to make a 6-pointed star. So they're basically showing you the star of Raphan, because the star of Raphan on one side had the 5-point, and on the other side had the 6-point. In fact, let me just put dollar bill here, and you'll probably see what I'm talking about. Okay, yeah, right here. This one here is the one I was looking for. Or here, over the eagle. Okay, so basically, they're basically saying this is the star of Raphan because they're trying to combine the 6-point with the 5-point. You see what I'm talking about there? So they've got a bunch of 5-point stars put together to make up a 6-pointed star. So it's that combination of the 5-point and the 6-point. It's kind of interesting. Okay, let me